everything on
Oh,
Saturday.
nice. Oh, that'll be fun.
Cool. Now we're being live streamed. Okay.
Oh, look
Stop talking
there.
about our weekends. Got it.
Yeah, I think we were able to get it to work.
Awesome.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Cool. Now we're being live streamed. Okay.
Oh, look
Stop
there.
talking about our weekends.
Okay, sorry. It was also playing on my computer. I was muted, but I was saying, all right, are we ready?
I think so.
Yes. Let's do it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. We are just gonna give it a couple of seconds. We have a lot of people joining us this morning, so we want everybody to be able to get in before we hear all of that great information. So we'll just give it another second, but it looks like everyone's coming in pretty quickly. All right. So just wanted to take a second to welcome you all and introduce myself. We are so excited that you're here. This is the Your Teaching Strategies Solutions for Preschool session. So if that sounds like where you're supposed to be, then you're in the right place. My name is Caitlin, and I am the lead partner success specialist specifically for New York City. So my sole job is to support you guys. If you've already been on a Getting Started webinar, you may have seen me on there. And if you've emailed the New York City Success email inbox, then I am the person who has been emailing you back with answers. So keep those questions coming. I know so many of you are probably curious about quite a few things. We do have some frequently asked questions that we get in the inbox and in the Q&As on these webinars. So I'm going to just put out some answers to those frequently asked questions just to kind of ease your minds a little bit so that you can really focus on the content that our wonderful presenters are going to be presenting for you. All right, so first off, I'm sure you're thinking about your logins. If you don't already have your login access, it is coming. Those logins are being worked on as we speak by our rostering team. We are working off of lists and files that we are receiving from the DOE and the DECE. So we really appreciate your patience. If you would like to check in on your login, you can feel free to email the nycsuccess@teachingstrategies.com email inbox, and I can check on that for you and kind of give you an update if that is helpful. And the second thing that we get questions on a lot is your print kit shipments. We know you're all super excited to get your hands on those materials. Our goal is that all shipments will arrive by June 30th. That's barring any delays that may have taken place yesterday. I know I'm in New Jersey, so I know kind of about the air quality situation that's going on. I hope you're all staying safe. But just in case there were any delivery delays, that could have backed us up a little bit, but our ultimate goal is that everyone will have their print kits in their classrooms by June 30th. And those print kits were ordered per classroom. So every classroom will be receiving their own print kit. So now that we have those kind of blanket statements to some of your frequently asked questions, I hope that you guys are really able to focus on what our presenters are going to be presenting. I'm going to go over a couple more housekeeping items before I pass it over to them. So first things first, we are recording this webinar. We actually are also going to be live on YouTube, I believe. There are just tons and tons of attendees at this, which is really amazing. So we want everybody to be able to watch. The link to the recording of this webinar will come to your email 24 hours after the session ends. So you'll get it tomorrow. We are also going to be putting the link to the recording on the NYC support website. So there will be an on-demand link there. You'll watch it at any time. This is a listen-only webinar, so your camera is off and your microphone is muted, so you don't need to worry about that. Right now, the chat is disabled. There's just such a large number of participants. If you're trying to put something in the Q&A, you might notice that the Q&A is also disabled. We will be turning the Q&A on at the end of the session. Just like we said, we want to be able to see some of your questions, and there's such a large amount of participants that if the Q&A was open the whole time, a lot of your questions would get lost. So we will make some time to open that Q&A later on in the session, but for now, just listen and kind of enjoy. And finally, we are unable to provide certificates for this session, but you will get an email from Zoom as proof of attendance. This is just because we are an IASET accredited provider, and we're not able to kind of meet those qualifications for this specific live Zoom session. So if you need proof of attendance, you will get a Zoom email tomorrow. All right, I think that's all the housekeeping items. So I am going to pass it over to Brian and Leslie.
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And yes, as Kayla mentioned, so sorry for all of the air quality and things that you're all juggling with and dealing with today. And just know we're hoping everyone is safe and healthy. And thank you with additional things that you're likely juggling today, taking the time to join us. My name is Brian Matt. I'm our Senior Vice President of Education here at Teaching Strategies, but I'm also a former New Yorker. So I feel like that has credentials here on this conversation. I lived in Astoria, Queen for a little over a decade, and I still miss it every day. I'm talking to you from Annapolis, Maryland now, and I decided it was time to have a family and be close to my family, but just look back so fondly on my years in New York, and also may know many of the thousands of you that are on the phone today from the work that we've done in New York over the last decade. Many of you, I've been in your programs or presented to you years ago when you were first looking at pre-K for expansion and the solutions you were putting in there with Gold and creative curriculum. So it just feels really, really awesome to be at this place now where we get to engage with everyone across the city and build off of the work of existing partnerships that we have in the city. And Leslie and I were pretty excited to have the opportunity to be the ones that get to do the session that's on all the things. So we have a lot that we want to talk about today in just 90 minutes. But as in my role as the head of education here at Teaching Strategies, I have the honor of leading all of our author teams and thinking about our approach to instructional design across our curriculum assessment, professional development solutions. So it really is an honor for me today to be joined with my colleague Leslie to give you a high-level overview of all the different solutions that you're going to have at your fingertips. Leslie and I wanted to set an expectation out of the beginning that we're covering so much. This is not the session where you're going to learn every element of everything. There's just too much. So we're going to give you an overview so that you can get excited and see where you want to continue to dig in first. So I will pass it off to Leslie to introduce herself and get us set up with some objectives.
Thank you very much, Brianne. Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Jennings, and I hail from the Detroit area. We're getting some of that, the Canada fires, so we're getting some of that air quality problems here as well, but not nearly as bad as what you're going through. So we really do appreciate whatever it is that you're going through, and you're making time to sit here and listen to this exciting webinar about what's coming in the future. I've had 30 some odd years of experience in early childhood in Detroit as an early childhood teacher and administrator, and I'm just very glad and honored to have this opportunity to talk to you today about teaching strategies and creative curriculum. So we're just going to get right into it, and we're just going to set the stage for whatever our learning objectives are for today. So by the end of our session today, you will be able to define what is meant by an ecosystem of solutions and describe its importance. You will also be able to identify the components of teaching strategies ecosystem of solutions and explain how to access each of them. And we're going to describe how the components of the teaching strategies ecosystem work together to support the important work of the early childhood teaching teams and leaders. Those are our objectives.
Excellent. And we're going to frame this conversation of about 30 minutes of me walking through some high-level overviews to give you an idea of those first, at least the first objective and the second of, what is the ecosystem? What do we mean by this? What are those big components? Then we'll shift in the second portion to have Leslie kind of drive in the system and show you digitally where you can access all of this information. And then we'll protect a good solid, at least 20 minutes or so for questions at the end that we mentioned. We'll turn on that Q&A. All right, so let's jump in with just a couple of New York City DOE info. I think this is just a reminder of some of the stuff that we talked about here at the top of the call, but I'll just leave this here for a second, but just to reiterate that if you're having any questions about your login or your resources and access, to just make sure that you're leveraging that dedicated NYC Success at Teaching Strategies email. And we're going to take a look at both print resources and digital resources today. So it's exciting to hear that they're all all the print resources are making their way to you by June 30th, but we'll continue to help folks get digital access. I will say it was pretty cool. Our internal teams sharing the picture of all of the print curriculums ready in the warehouse to be going to New York City. My 6-year-old daughter and I nerded out on it quite a bit. I'd never seen anything like it. So felt kind of like Oprah, like, can we get a curriculum? You get a curriculum. And it was just, it was so much of it. So it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to the opportunity for you guys to get those and be able to start unpacking. Okay, so let's talk about this idea of an ecosystem, right? You can see all these things flooding the screen. As former educators ourselves, Leslie and I can both, sit in your shoes and in your seat of just how much we juggle as educators every day, whether you're a paraprofessional, a teacher, a lead, to anyone on the teaching team, all the way up through our leaders, administrators at the district level to all across the board. We are juggling so much in the field of early childhood, and they can often feel disconnected. This is just a sampling when we do a word cloud of people talking to us about the different things they're juggling. And when we're juggling all of these disparate items, there's not enough time to dig into the things that are most important. We know it further fuels teachers' burnout, which leads to higher turnover. There's no way to have effective family partnerships when you have all of these different unique things. How do we make all that make sense for families? There's, conflicting definitions and lack of evidence around, well, what does readiness really mean if I'm looking at all of these different pieces? And then often when we're investing as programs in all this different stuff, then this says here, like, not enough dollars left for professional development. I think that's part of it, but then it's also like time and brain space left for professional development. And so much of my cognitive load has to be on how do I make connections to all of this stuff, right? And if I go to PD on this one tool, then it maybe conflicts with PD I heard, 6 weeks ago on a different tool. And that's a lot of cognitive gymnastics that we're asking educators to do. So this really is what drove us at Teaching Strategies to really create a connected ecosystem, the only connected ecosystem in early childhood that takes all those things we saw on that slide, all of those different things that we're having to juggle as educators, and bring them into one connected ecosystem where they all work together. So whether you're thinking about curriculum, assessment, family engagement, the reporting that supports it, I always say professional development is in the wheel, but it's also the hug that goes around the whole thing. Right? Professional development is what brings it all together. That's what we mean by an ecosystem. We'll talk through, as you start implementing, of course, there's logistical things that are beneficial to an ecosystem. When Leslie logs in, you'll see everything's behind one login and all the technological systems talk to each other, which is helpful. But what's most meaningful for me as an educator is it's not just that the technology is connected, it's all the theory, the best practice, the strategy, the family engagement. All of these components are designed by our teams to set you up for success and honestly blur the lines between a lot of these things. We know that curriculum is at its best when it is seamlessly informed by instruction, so by assessment. So it has to show up at the same time for you. We want to have your backs as educators and blur that line of teaching and assessing. That's just showing up for children. That's just being present, asking ourselves questions, doing some reflection, and having recommendations waiting for you on how to individualize. So when you think about ecosystem and hopefully get excited about the new set of solutions that are going to be available to you this year, think about this idea of all of the different kind of elements of what we think of high quality. You're going to find examples of those across this full ecosystem, across this solution, in ways that are really intentionally designed to work together. So because of all of these resources, this is, some of you may have seen this in earlier communications, but our ecosystem was created for teachers by teachers over 4 decades of showing up for the field, focused on early childhood explicitly. We're, in over 270,000 classrooms with 15 million children, now adding New York City to that, the #1 solution rated for Head Start. So you can also, as you step into using these solutions, have the confidence of tried and true experience that we've had in even large cities like Detroit and others that Leslie represents as we think about setting you up for success. So we're going to organize this first section as I walk you through the high-level overview to really look at 4 different key components. The first we're going to look at is how our ecosystem respects and nurtures individual skill progression for the whole child. We're going to talk a little bit about harnessing the power of studies. We're going to talk about how we seamlessly connect with families to their children's learning. And then we'll talk about easy ways to support you, every educator, every day along the way. And then, like I said, after we go through this overview, we'll log in and start seeing where all those things are in the system. Okay, so let's start first with the #1, and I think most important, is respecting and nurturing individual skill progression for every child, for the whole child. Individualized instruction is the most important thing we do. That's meeting children where they are. We know we have to build those strong relationships, but we're looking for growth for every child, as we know every educator in New York City is. How we get to growth for every child is to individualize our approach in everything that we do. So we are maniacally focused in every decision we make, from our print solutions to our digital solutions to our professional development. You will get tired of hearing us use the words individualized instruction, but this is the most important element of how we think about setting each child up for success. So when we think about whole child, we really mean it. So when you look at our solutions, you will see equal focus on all elements that are those core foundations to setting children up, not just for school success, but life success, right? And thinking beyond just what K readiness may look like, and really thinking full to what does future success in life look like? And we know that starts with strong foundations of social, emotional development, cognitive development, physical and language, of course, working in chorus and in parallel with rich and rigorous math and literacy as we move across all of those elements. And we get there also by looking at progressions of development and learning. Some solutions out there just focused on that pre-K 3, pre-K 4 solution. Others kind of take us all the way up to all the way through preschool. Others kind of watered down upper elementary into lower. What we do at Teaching Strategies is we think about that whole progression of development from birth through third grade. So we're looking at the entirety of early childhood. So those of you on the call today are pre-K 3 and our pre-K 4 programs. The green and blue color band, as you start getting comfortable with our solutions, that's going to represent the widely held expectations for the children that you serve. But all of us that have taught a pre-K 3 classroom, a pre-K 4 classroom, no, not all children come to us with the skills that fall into the widely held expectations. So what you'll see in our resources is you're not going to have to go to another tool or another place to get suggestions on how you individualize for a child with a significant developmental delay or a child whose skills are far above widely held expectations. We have a commitment to support growth for every child, which means we want to give you that exposure within our tools that you can feel empowered to meet them individually, no matter where their skills fall along this progression. So if we look at an example, you can see here, each of these color bands are representing the research-based expectation for an individual age, class, or grade. And here's an example of something like counting. So we can see here at the early years of counting, it's when children are really just working on 1, 2, 10, they're jumping, right? Then we move into the next level of they can verbally count to 10. They can count up to 5 objects. That's what we're building up into that pre-K 3. And we move on to our next level where children start counting to 20. They can count up to 20 objects. They can tell what number comes next in order. That's what we're looking for in that pre-K 4 space. All the way through third grade expectations where we're counting to 1,000 and skip counting and solving those big math problems. It's a progression of development that starts with 1, 2, 10 and builds on that progression. So again, you'll have this visibility in our solutions. If a child comes into your classroom as a 4-year-old saying 1, 2, 10, it's important for us to know that's where that child's skills are right now so that we can individualize and not be jumping all the way to, well, nope, it says that we need to count to 20. So I'm going to keep putting 20 things in front of you until you get there. That's not going to set that child up for success. We need to hit these first milestones to ensure growth for every child. Leslie, I'm going to pause there to see if there is anything else you wanted to add. No.
I'm sorry, I was on mute because it's not a Zoom meeting unless you speak when you're muted. So now it is officially a Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting.
No, it's official. It really for us, for me, it was the progressions that really set us apart because it really helps you individualize. It helps you take that child wherever they are on that progression and move them forward. So that was really a very important part for us that we focused on as well.
When you were leading in Detroit.
When we were leading in Detroit.
Yeah.
It really was a game changer for us because I was the one screaming from the mountaintops, individualize, individualize. But what made me think that everybody necessarily knew what the skill was before or after, where the child was? Well, because of Teaching Strategies, they did not have to know. It was right there. The research had been done. It was right there for us.
I love that you make that point, Leslie, of like all the things we have to carry in our head, right? I keep talking about cognitive overload, but it's like, it's a real thing. It's part of what leads to our burnout, right? So something that Leslie will show you when we're live in the system, but here's a sneak peek is we want to take it one step further of not just offering you that visibility and a progression, but what you'll see within the tool is we take activities and then we have the progression right there in the activity. So we're going to tell you within the system, based on your assessment information, how to individualize. So to Leslie's point, even the best of the best teachers, I thought I was a pretty awesome pre-K teacher and director. Even I couldn't carry all of this in my head. You can't know all 20 some odd children that you're supporting where exactly the right places are. This is a way we can have your back, especially because New York City is using these curriculum and assessment solutions together. Every day, you're going to be prompted with suggestions on how you can immediately meet children's skills where they are. And Leslie will show you all the cool ways that we can set you up for success there. Then also when we think about individualizing, it's important that we're being culturally and linguistically responsive. So in case we forget to point out all the ways today in our short time, all of our solutions we have that are child facing, family facing, all available in both English and Spanish. And at Teaching Strategies, we go through a dedicated editorial process to make sure all of our Spanish content is culturally responsive. We do a trans-adapted translation to make sure that we're not just doing a direct Google Translate, but we're making sure that as we do these translations, it's going to resonate at home. A great example is the Mega Minutos. They're even different tunes. Mighty Minutes use a lot of public domain and songs that have been passed along. So in Mega Minutos, we're going to have songs, tunes, and rhymes that are going to resonate with families who are speaking Spanish at home. And then you'll also see embedded within our solution some suggestions to support multilingual learners. Okay, so then the next thing we wanted to talk about was harnessing the power of play through studies. So we've talked about individualizing, but then how does this all kind of come together? Because we are a classroom community. Yes, we're individualizing for each child, but we're also coming together as a whole group, as a whole classroom community to investigate and explore things. This is what I get. This is what drew me to Teaching Strategies, honestly, over 13 years ago, was this idea of doing true project-based investigations with children. And I know a lot of folks in New York City are already familiar with this, right? When we think about what studies are, they're explorations of topics that are relevant to children's everyday lives, boxes, water, wheels, things that children come to us with some prior knowledge. It's not sage on a stage, let me teach you this concept, but instead, hey, you big brain learners, you already know a lot about these topics because they're part of your everyday. Now let's come together and ask bigger questions and more meaningful questions and get you some of those answers. They're hands-on, they're play-based. Yes, the teacher's facilitating it, especially in your pre-K 3 classrooms. We're going to need to model for children how to ask some of these big questions. But then we take a back seat and let children really drive finding these answers. And then there's also these connections to beautifully bring these studies home, which we'll talk a couple examples about that. So what studies aren't is more of these thematic concepts that really are a mile wide and an inch deep, that don't let you truly dig in. Things like planets, dinosaurs, transportation, so, those are absolutely appropriate topics. They're interesting for children of this age. There's things we can have fun with in the art area, in our read alouds that we share. We're not saying these are bad topics. Of course, they're appropriate to discuss, but we can't investigate and explore them. They're not as easily accessible as the topics that you'll see outlined within the creative curriculum, because we really want children to persist on these topics, to find answers to their questions, so that they can start building the critical thinking and the higher level process skills that are truly needed for future school success. All right, so here's just a quick example. I wish we had like 3 hours together, but you'll get so much more of this content along the way through TAP and other webinars. But basically, as a high level for this might be new to, every study is going to start with, what do we know about this topic and what do we want to find out? Because we're picking things that children already have prior knowledge to. We'll document that. You'll see in the structure of our teaching guides, we set you up for success on how to look through that and present some of those questions with children. But then we're documenting, what do they want to know and how are we going to set up investigations over the course of the 4 weeks for children to find answers to their own questions. And through that, that's where all of this great content learning is coming in daily. There's going to be open-ended math experience where they're using standard and non-standard measurement tools. There's going to be observational drawing where children can represent their ideas and thinking through pictures, dictation, emergent writing. There's going to be problem solving and collaboration as we introduce concepts in large group and shared writing, but then invite children with provocations and extensions where within the interest areas they can build and scaffold and spiral on their learning with their peers, facilitated with some intentionality from you as the adult, and then come back together and share those findings to then build off of again the next day. And all of this then is laid out for you. Leslie's going to show you what our digital planning tool looks like. But those of you who haven't gotten your print tools yet, this is just a quick sneak peek of how this is laid out as a day in our print solution. And you're going to see this large group shared writing experiences every day leads into those extensions in choice time, your supports for read aloud, small group, large group, all of this kind of rounds out as the classroom community investigating the study topic and focus question. But then you can see here where we've highlighted where all that rich literacy and math is going to come in through our daily resources, our small group instruction, our transitions, which often focus on phonological awareness, and some connections and extensions we can do in choice time. Then obviously things like read aloud as well. Okay. The next piece we wanted to talk about is seamlessly connecting to families. We know how important this is to all educators, but it's been so powerful in our partnership with New York to just understand how focused New York City is on really empowering families. Success is children's first and forever teachers, and how important it is. We want to help advocate for that and help fuel and drive New York City, really setting an example for what that can look like. So a couple of things here. There'll be separate sessions where you can learn all about the ways we can interact with families, but we wanted to highlight today what I think is one of the most powerful ones is automated playlists that are going to be set up for you. This is actually something we started to play with during COVID, distance learning. I was frustrated with so many solutions that were just putting for family stickers on teacher content and saying, okay, this is for families. Like, that's not, like, families aren't pre-K teachers. They don't have the background here. And it's not appropriate to just funnel teacher content to families. And then I also got frustrated that a lot of the family content, while research-based and engaging, followed a very rigid scope and sequence that actually had nothing to do with what was happening in the classroom. So what we stretched ourselves to do was think about, well, what does family engagement look like that still feels like I'm getting a front row seat to what's happening in the classroom? So this is one of the things I'm most excited about in our ecosystem is that every investigation, Leslie will show you one of these in a little bit, but every investigation, so roughly every 4 to 5 days, there's going to be this playlist pre-populated for you, just waiting in your digital solution that's going to have a modeled moment video of showing a family doing an activity that ties back to the investigation. Do all balls roll? We'll see family playing a game where they're rolling balls, and very accessible in a way that families feel like they can replicate and engage in that experience over the weekend or after school. You're going to see digital ebooks. You're going to see that are nonfiction titles related to the study topic. You're going to see Mighty Minutes or Mega Minutos, those songs that we're singing in the classroom. Every few days, we're going to send one of those home to families. So not just a random song, but literally a song that children are singing in the classroom. So when you'll hear us talk about, we really want to have your back in New York City. We want to set you up for success. This is a huge time saver to let you know you already have really high quality content teed up and ready to go with families. But of course, as you get more comfortable with the tool, you can tweak and add and edit things related to this content as well. But then there will also be two-way communication with families, which we'll show you a little bit later. Okay, the last piece before I pass off to Leslie, I'm almost right on time, Leslie. We said I should pass you at 9, so we're doing good. The last piece we want to talk about is, again, this idea of we want to be here to support you every step of the day, every day, as you move through our solutions. And we'll highlight today a few different ways that we do that. The first is through structurally how our curriculum is set up. So even before we can get into any of the professional development or programs and content that we have for you there, I wanted to start with just talking about just the sheer fact that our curriculum starts with the first 6 weeks of building your classroom community. This in and of itself is support for you as the educator. We know it's so important for teachers and children to build those strong relationships in the first 6 weeks. You don't walk into a creative curriculum classroom and say, here's your cubby, here's your spot in the circle, what's a shape, how high can you count, right? We can't get to that until we've built these nurturing relationships. Children have to know that they're safe in this space. Children have to come to understand what the routines are. They have to understand what our rules are. They have to be part of making the rules themselves, because they're going to follow along and engage with them as a community in a much more powerful way when they feel enrolled in the process. So the very first teaching guide you're going to use is the first 6 weeks building your classroom community, where we'll focus in on these focus questions that help children and you build that strong sense of community that then allows us to move into studies so children can take risks and can ask big questions and can really drive their own learning. And then the other component we wanted to talk about is some of these time-saving features. I'm not going to talk about much of this here because Leslie's going to actually show you in action what some of this looks like. And then the last component is our teacher membership. So all of our New York City educators have access to our PD teacher membership that really has two big buckets. One of them is the hub. We like to think of this as like the quad when we were all in college, where you could go and meet up with friends and peers, or when you were student teaching and you all came back to campus to like talk about your week and what it was looking like. We're trying to create a professional learning community here in this space where you can talk to peers, can talk to experts from teaching strategies. And we've got some dedicated New York City forums in here as well. So yes, you can engage with the whole world if you want, but you can also talk directly to some New York City experts and peers as well. So we'll give you a sneak peek of that, but you'll hear lots of information about the hub of ways to have you feel connected as you step up into this big new journey of using this new ecosystem. And then the other component is Quorum. This is our rich coursework where you can go through and take short little 1 hour all the way to 10-hour courses that are going to, some of them focus on our specific solutions, but others that are just product agnostic best practice content to help you elevate the profession for whatever goals you've set forth for yourself. You'll find, over 400 hours of content relevant to where you may want to focus in on. And like I said, we'll show you this live here a little bit in the future and in a minute. In the future, that was a weird thing to say. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Leslie, who's going to take these 4 key things of how do we individualize instruction, how do we harness this power of studies, how are we engaging families, and then have we got your back? So we'll now look at how that plays out across a digital tour of my teaching strategies, where Leslie and I will walk you through what those tools look like in action.
All right.
But Leslie, feel free to add anything to what I just said before you get started too.
Oh, sure. I'm hoping that you see my desktop, great, so we can move forward. Great. Well, thank you very much. And once again, thank you for having this time with us today. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to move forward with what Brian was speaking about, and just show you the platform in action. So I want to make sure that we understand this is really an overview. This is not a professional development to teach you how to do these things. So if you have a pen in your hand and you're trying to take notes, you really don't have to. If you're trying to follow the clicks, that's really not necessary. There'll be a time and a place and other PDs for that. Really, we want you to enjoy this. We want you to sit back and see what the platform can do. And not worry about how to make it do those things. So right here on the front, you should see is what we call our landing page. And part of being the ecosystem is not just the fact that there's one sign-on for all of these tabs, but this is where we're going to start. This is our landing page, and everything you will find will be right here. I used to work in Detroit Public Schools, and I was one of the supervisors there. And when I got into teaching strategies and I got into this platform, I lived right up here at the top with these. At this time, we didn't have the hub. So we had these 6 tabs up here, and that's where I lived. But I feel like I missed some of the beauty, and I'm just not going to let that happen to you, because there's some things on this page that I just like to point out. From the teaching strategies team, these are little articles, sometimes they're little blogs or even some videos from Sometimes from teaching strategies, staff members, but also from the teaching strategies partners. I look forward to the day when somebody from New York City has one of these here, but these are just fun, little short, quick, easy, just information, and not even necessarily about teaching strategies. This one was about, one of our colleagues was talking about how to take control in an uncontrollable time. And she talks about when she bought a rocking chair. It's a really sweet little story, but they're quick, they're easy. And I just like to point those out. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to have a connection to the field. Also down here, we have a support for teachers. So besides the professional development, besides the coaching that's embedded, we also have support portals everywhere you turn. So sometimes here we'll think, well, what kind of time of year this is. These are some questions that the field might be having. So we'll have some articles, some support here. And if that's not what you're looking for, that's okay. Because if you click that button or if you click this little question mark here on the side, it will take you to our support portal. Once again, we have some articles here that we think you might be interested in, but if that's not what you need, you just click that button and up will pop like a Google, but it's Google for teaching strategies. So there's some tiles here you can click on, get all the information you need. So there's never a time that you will be alone and not know how to get information. So I like to point that out here. This is blank right now because I have not put anything in because I was waiting for you. I wanted to show you how easy it was to put in a plan. So that's going to be blank, but it wouldn't be blank for you. So that's our landing page. Just take a minute and look through there when you get the chance. I'm going to start up here on our tiles. I'm going to start from left to right, and I'm just going to start here in the library. This is where our resources live, each individual piece of our resources. It was explained to me because I came to teaching strategies right before the pandemic, and it was a big thing about, it was time to leave and take your resources, take your curriculum with you. Well, of course we did, but did we take enough for the next 2 years? No, we did not. But teaching strategies to the rescue. And what they did was they took the resources that we have and they put them right here. So no matter where you were, whether you were in the classroom, whether you were at home, it really did not matter because you could have access to them right here in the portal. So I'm just going to go through some of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, although I could, because really for me, the library is one of my favorite tabs. Right here in the Getting Started, there's a guide that I'm just going to click into just briefly, just to show you what it is. It opens like any e-reader that you're used to. The table of contents are here. I'm just going to go to putting it all together, getting acquainted. So you can see here, I'll just click through here. Certainly you'll have time. This is where when Brian was talking about the at a glance and how to look at our facilitation guides, this will give you an explanation for each segment of the day, what it looks like, how to read the facilitation guides. You're never alone when you're here with teaching strategies. What's in a daily plan? And I really like this one for me. It was preparing for the first days of school. Certainly, we're not going to give you all these resources and all this digital access and not give some sort of guidance on how to pull it together. So we'll have a guide here, preparing for the first days, welcoming children into your program. I'm just going to click through here, arranging that physical environment, which is very important, planning your daily schedule. All of these things are here at your fingertips. The other thing
is just one point before
yes.
you move over there, Leslie, is just one of the benefits to cloud in the system is that you have digital access to literally everything that we create for this age group, but your print solution that you're receiving is guided edition. So Leslie, you clicked on guided, but I just wanted to reiterate that as you come into this tool, you can see like this little red triangle up in the corner. If you can see the mouse, there you go. So as you're coming in, absolutely doubling down on what Leslie said, if you want to get started with the Getting Started guide, but just use that little red triangle in the corner is your guide of those are the things that are specifically going to match the solutions that you're receiving in print. You'll see there's some other fun study topics you could play with in the future, but especially as you're just getting started, you'll want to focus in on the things that will best set you up for success of using your print and digital together, and those are going to be the guided edition pieces. Okay, back to you, Leslie.
Thank you. So the next on our library are the foundation volumes. Now, let me make sure that I make it clear, we never intended for people to read these foundation volumes from number 1 all the way to number 2, page 260. That was not really what it was intended for. It's really a resource. And if you're a person like me who wants to know why, who wants to know the research, who wants to build that toolbox, this is where I lived. So I'm just going to go through, I'm not going to go through all of them, even though I really would like to, but I'm just going to pick a few. The foundation, the theory, and the research is here. This behind creative curriculum, helping people understand. I started, some of our preschools in Detroit were in elementary schools. And sometimes the principals were just not really familiar with early childhood. This was a great place to start to understand what purposeful play looks like in an early childhood classroom. This was a great place if I needed to talk to parents about what the day was going to look like for their children and why. This was a great place for me to be. I really enjoyed these chapters, interacting with the environment. I'm gonna just click through here. Certainly you'll have your time to look through this, but these little blue call out buttons, your teaching practice, how that's going to help facilitate the teaching that you're doing in the classroom for your children. So these are really one of my favorite, the learning environment, how to set up the learning environment, my friends, not just how to set it up, but what should be in it. Some suggestions about what could be in it, what the children are learning in the different interest areas, and how to interact with the different areas, and what research says. Oh my goodness, I'm getting excited because that's just my jam, Bria. The other book, one more book, the interest areas, because the interest areas are very important in the creative curriculum classroom. But what I really like about this is in the dramatic play, I'm just going to flip through this one chapter. It tells us how dramatic play promotes development and learning in all the content areas, what a child will do, how to set it up, where it should be set up in the classroom, some furnishings that are recommended, some suggested materials. But really what I enjoy is the dramatic play areas. You know, does not have to be the dramatic play area the entire year. We've got some ideas and suggestions on how to change that. And then what children are learning in the areas for each of the content areas. So this is dramatic play. What are they learning about language and literacy, math, science, technology? I mean, I can just go on and on. And here I'm gonna stop right here with the teacher's role in it. So you'll take some time to go through this and remember, it's there for your resource. Is there anything there you wanted to add? This is just my favorite tab, you know.
No, it's great. I will just say there's also a search feature in the foundation volume. So as Leslie meant, like, we know no teacher has time to read through those volumes cover to cover. We actually take a lot of the content and embed it in different places for you. But there's also search. So Leslie just popped in process skills. Are you hear a term that you're like, well, what does creative curriculum think about that? Or how do I support it? It will quickly jump you to the right place in the volumes to find out more. One of the things often is we think about family engagement, and then each of those areas is going to talk through ways that we can further support family engagement. So as you get more comfortable with the volumes, totally agree with Leslie that they're an unbelievable resource, but to save you some time, you can start with searching for some of the concepts that are front of mind for you.
And I'll just make sure you see the topics: language and literacy, mathematics, science and technology. Oh, I could go on. So those are the foundation volumes. Those are here in our library. I'm going to move on now to the teaching guides. As I hear Brian says, you're going to get a print, but you're also going to get access to them digitally. And the beautiful part is that when Teaching Strategies comes up with a new a study, we're going to add it right here and you'll have instant access to it. So I'm just going to open up one digitally so you can just thumb through it. I'll start here with exploring the topic. And you will see our at a glance page. We do not call it weekly plan because, as you see, this one's 4 days. Some are 3, some are 5. So this is our at a glance page. And then if I just keep turning, you'll see the facilitation guide that's going to help you with the vocabulary, getting to know the studies. These blue callouts are really for the teachers, what to do for each segment of the day. For day 1, 2, and 3. We're going to look more closely at that in the teach part, but I just wanted to show you that it is here for you as well. And once again, the guided, the little, is that purple or pink? The little guided triangle at the top, those are the ones that we're focusing on. But as you see, we have access to a great many topics. And as Brianne was talking about the difference between a theme and a study, these are our studies. These are things that the children are actually having interactions with in their lives, boxes and clothes and light and things like that. So you'll see these studies are going to be right here for you. I'm going to move down to we have our Mighty Minutes. Those are our transition activities, but I'm going to show you more of those when we get into the tool itself. The intentional teaching experiences, those are those small group, get in there kinds of experiences as well. But I do want to also show you before I leave the library tab, the children's library. I'm telling you, when the pandemic hit and we were having the parents and were at home reading books, I did not have a big library of children's books. Our teachers did not have them. Certainly our parents did not have all of these titles, but Teaching Strategies to the rescue. And what they did was we have digital access to these lovely, lovely books in English. And if I come up here and toggle over, you'll see the Spanish. And what I can do, I'm gonna go back to English over here. It's just a click of a button. I'm just gonna open one so you can see how beautiful it is. I can have it read to me, or I can read it by myself. And this book, let's pretend that I read this to the class and everybody loved it. I can send this home digitally to the families, or individually. I can say, you know what, Miles really enjoyed this about this boat. I can send it home to Miles's family with a note saying Miles enjoyed it. They'll get this exact digital copy that they can read or be read to them as well. That's one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. And then my last one on the library tab itself is the downloadable resources. I like that because sometimes as teachers, like for the box study, for example, we would have to have pictures of boxes. Well, I didn't have really great pictures of boxes, so I would Google or whatever I would do. Well, now they're presented here for you. These beautiful pictures of these different kinds of intricate boxes that are downloadable and available for you. Okay. So that is the library tab. That's where our resources live. But now I'm going to go to the Teach tab up here. That's where our resources live and breathe. This is where we're interacting with them. So this is one of my favorite. Now I like to do this in person because I like to hear the oohs and the ahs. But I'm going to go over here to the month view so that you can just see. Right now there's an empty template. There's nothing there. With a few clicks, I know I said don't write down the clicks, but we can count them because I'm going to show you how we're going to load one of those teaching guides. So I'm just going to go over here where it says add a teaching guide. I'm going to click that. It says, what day would you like to begin? I'm going to begin today. And then it asks, well, which guide would you like? That's a fair question. So I'm just going to say balls. And they ask me to confirm, and away we go. Now look, what the program has done, what the platform has done is taken that teaching guide and served it up into our weekly plan. Look, I'm going to click on that. The segments of the day is there. The content from that study is there. And I'm going to click on it even further. And this is what we call the day view. It takes away whatever is going on the day before or the next day, and it focuses on what's happening right here today. One of my favorites. So I'm just going to click through here, and Brian, please feel free to jump in and talk about some of these features, but some of these are my favorite. Like preparation. This is a teacher's dream because sometimes you would have to get this book and get this book and get this book. Well, Teaching Strategies has done all of that and put it right here for us. But then here's a preparation, so I can go in there. Here's that Mighty Minute. Review that Mighty Minute. Review the large group. What's coming up? The vocabulary that is happening for the day, and that blue call out button, that the blue call out box, that coaching in the corner for our teachers. The preparation is here. I can also edit it, but I'm going to show you the edit in a different segment of the day. But preparation is very important for our teachers to get ready for their day. I'm going to go down here to Mighty Minutes, where it says Mighty Minute letter sounds. These are transitional activities. I think was it 30 some odd percent, Brian? I'm not sure about how much of our day in the early childhood is spent in transition. That sounded like a lot, but when I thought about it, I guess that sounds about right. And we know what can happen in transition times when children are not being engaged. And I think now probably even, with the pandemic and post-pandemic, when the lines for washing our hands may be longer or the space that we need may be greater, there might be even more transitional times. So we have these mighty minutes. I'm just going to click on this one. And you'll see here, they're short, they're fast, they're quick little activities that we can do in the interim, that we can do in the transition, that are focused right back to those objectives of development and learning that Brian was talking about with the facilitation guide and how to use it here.
Yeah, I think
Now,
with mighty minutes, like so often, those of us have been teaching forever, like we know that songs, chants, rhymes, like that's the strategy to use. But if we are honest with ourselves, how often do we fall back on like the same handful,
the same
right?
one.
Wheels on the bus, if you're happy and you know it, and head, shoulders, like those, that's a good strategy, but we're missing opportunities to really drive instruction and to think about those core objectives. So I love that you talked about those as making transitions really meaningful. So those of you that may be new to the curriculum, like think about like, this is a strategy you're already using. We're just now giving you like hundreds of new options of ways to leverage that strategy. And one of the things Leslie's getting ready to show you an audio clip. I've never felt older than when doing, oh, your stop share went away, Leslie.
Sorry.
That's okay. That I never felt older than when training a group of younger teachers who didn't know what some of these tunes were. So we like in a training had to go to YouTube to find out what the Muffin Man sounded like. And so we've now included audio clips that go along with the kind of instrumental music, knowing that some of our new teachers might not know all of these tunes and rhymes. So I think Leslie, you were getting ready to play that.
Yes.
There's too many people.
So it's so funny because before we started, I played that to make sure the sound that I had my speakers up the correct way. And then afterwards, I just heard Brian just humming, do you know? So it gets really catchy because you're right, Brian. Sometimes we don't know the melodies and sometimes the teachers were making up their own, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But this is just a support here as well. But we can share these with families. We can view it in Spanish as well. So these are just some of the features that we have for that. I'm going to move on. Oh, I see my time. Breathe in,
No,
breathe
you're
in.
good.
I'm going to go at my large group area. So if I click on there, here is the facilitation for large group. And I wanted to save this for editing because we are a structured, we are not scripted. And we know that there are excellent teachers in New York. And we know that you have some activities and some strategies that are tried and true that you're going to incorporate. We encourage you to do so. So we have an edit button here that we can just go in there, add your own resource, add some facilitation. You know what? I don't want to do this ball this time. I'm going to change it for the next time. Or come down here and, you know what? I don't want this mighty minute. There's another mighty. All of these things are editable for you to do. I really like this vocabulary part too, because sometimes you'll be surprised with words you think the children know because they're using them and they really don't know. So the vocabulary will be down here, and not a Webster's definition, but a 3- and 4-year-old friendly definition of these words. So in here, you'll be able to edit and save, and it will be there for your plan.
And a new feature we're launching for this back to school is all those edits that you make will also save year over year. So if you're taking something like the ball study, as Leslie mentioned, we really want you to make this come to life for your local classroom community. So thinking about who you have access to, where, your programs can visit, what are the adults and relationships that you have that you can leverage, is you going to make some of those edits that Leslie mentioned. Those are going to be there then waiting for you next year when you go to do the ball study, which is a new feature we're adding because folks have liked this ability to capture all of these edits and customizations, but of course you don't want to have to do that year over year. So some of that can be waiting for you. Okay, Leslie, we're going to jump into small group and then we'll talk about family partnerships.
Yes,
still
ma'am.
from this view. Awesome.
Yes. Intentional teaching experience. I'm going to click on there because there's so much here. This is the facility. These are the small group activities. They're going to be founded in those objectives of development and learning. They're going to be right here. The objective and the related objectives are going to be here. I can also include all children. I can also include multilingual learners. I can also include questions to guide my observation. But my very favorite part of this is down here is the teaching sequence. So this is the part, the facilitation guide we're going to do for everyone. But then we're going to go down here and look at the teaching sequence. We're going to see how this objective lays out on that progression. So we know where the widely held expectations are. They're going to be right here. We'll just pick blue. But all of our children are not going to come here in the blue. Some are going to come and need some more support. Some are going to have those in spades and we can just move forward because we're not going to tell them to sit there and wait for us. But what's that progression is laid out here. What does that look like? That goes back to me telling the teachers, individualize. Oh, okay, easier said than done if I don't know. But right here is the teaching sequence. And I really love this feature. This was a game changer for us. And the other thing that I would like to point out is you see, these are the children's names. These are the children's names in your classroom. And then you will see where they fall on that progression. That's based on the evidence, the assessment that you put in, the information that you put in the last time you were teaching this objective. So right from this page, I can toggle over to assess. There are already questions here that's going to guide my observations that are related to this activity. I'm just going to click on one. Once again, my children are already served up for me. Once again, that objective is already served up for me along that entire progression. So I can write from this score. My indicators are here. There's examples here. I can just, you're going to do more, I'm being indiscriminate here. I just want to prove a point that you can just go through here and just score your entire class or one or two children, depending on what you saw in the small group. And then when I go to save, and then I go, did I save it? Yes. And then when I go back to teach and I'm going to refresh, the children have now scored differently because I put in information. So the next time I go from this objective, I will see where the children were the last time I assessed them. You're talking about individualization or formative assessment right here at your fingertips.
And I think knowing one of our key objectives is just have everyone really confident in understanding, like, what does an ecosystem mean? This is what teaching strategies means by an ecosystem, right? This gets beyond just like everything's behind the same login. This is absolutely blurring the lines of curriculum and assessment. In some ways, we like to talk about this making assessment invisible, because assessment now isn't an event. What Leslie just played out is this is direct instruction every day in your small group, but we're not going to set you up with that experience without telling you, setting you up for success for what your data says is the best way to individualize. But then also you don't need to think about all 38 objectives and dimensions. We're going to tee up what are in the handful we know that you're likely to see in this experience. So as you think about getting excited about having a set of solutions that were designed to work together for you, I think this is one of the clearest examples. And what you'll see over the course of the next year is us actually releasing some more features for even a little bit more of this strong connection. But this is the one, if you're going to start playing with one resource out of the gate, this is where you're going to get the most investment out of really seeing how the curriculum and assessment were designed to work together.
Thank you. So that's right from here. I'm teaching, I'm assessing. I can also send this to my family. I'm going to go back because I want to also show you the family partnership. The first day of every investigation, which this was, let me refresh my screen. Oh, there it was. It's the family partnerships. So I'm going to click on that. And this is the new family playlist that's going to go out to your family. So if I click on this, what can we do with balls? I'm going to click on this. This is going to be, it shows you an example of what's going to be sent out to your families in English. And if I click the button, in Spanish. So you'll see here, these are our modeled moments. We have a book that we're going to send home. We're going to have a mighty minute that can be sent home. Something to consider for your families are also going to be sent home. One of these will go out on the first day of each investigation, and they're linked to the study that you're working on. You'll be able to edit these and add a little note if you so choose. And the fun part is it's going to go to your families. Your families are going to be able to interact with them and reply back. Oh, we did this and we had a great time. Or we did this and, send me more like this. And you will be able to have that family connection because, research shows that families, that the children who have families that are having a great relationship with schools, they do better. So we're going to facilitate that. We've got your back with that. So this is just an example of what will be shared out. Brienne, you want to add to this?
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
And again, it's what Leslie said, like, we're always trying to figure out, how do we give you your Sunday night back a little, right? Like, a note's already here, but we also know, like, you may want to tweak it a little. So any of the content is editable, but I know firsthand what it's like to just sit down the night before my family newsletter is supposed to go out in a blank Word document and like, oh, where do I start? We've got it started for you. We've got you there. But then of course, these are your families. These are the children you serve. We're always going to have those opportunities for you to continue to edit that.
Yeah.
I think the last feature, Leslie, before we jump out of debut, I just wanted to show drag and drop real quick, because I know folks have questions around like scheduling and all of that. It's not rich content, but if we just go back to debut real quick, I want to show just how easy it is that if you need to move your outdoors up. It's just so simple as you drag and drop. I am not a super tech savvy person. Maybe I shouldn't say that as a vice president in an ed tech solution, but I'm not. But I represent you well here at Teaching Strategies. And this was something that I felt like was really important. If we want you to feel empowered to use digital tools, we need to make them editable so they can feel like they're your own. And they also need to be easy to manipulate and make dynamic. So continue to play around with those, and then also give us feedback of ways that we can continue to make that stronger as you use them. All right,
you gave
moving on to
a great
now, Leslie. Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, right. I will do that. So the next toggle over is assess. This is where our gold lives. Once again, do not worry about taking notes or worry about where we clicked. We're going to have a training on gold. So just sit back and relax and let's see what gold can do. This is our at a glance page. This is the page that's going to help us keep track of where our observations are, where we need to take more, where we have some good information. And it also, not just where the documentation is, how the children are doing. So if I click into, let's say, social emotional, look at all the documentation that I have here. Let me turn on the legend so that you can see, because remember, we have supports all over the place. The plus means I don't have any documentation. That's going to be something that I need to pay attention to. So you'll see what the legends are here. But also, if I hover over them, you'll get even more information. For objective 1A, Bella is in the widely held expectation. So we can see where she is. Over here, I think this is Natasha. Natasha is progressing too. So those colors, well, once you're familiar with the colored bands, they will, when you just see them, you'll say, oh, let me see what I can do here. Natasha is progressing towards these widely held expectations as well. But one of the things that I really like is right from here, look here, I see that I have no information, no documentation here for Bella for 3B. All I have to do is click on it. And right over here, it serves that up for me. I'm going to add documentation. And let me show you how easy that is. So I'm just going to, let's pretend I've got a photo over here. I'm going to drag and drop. You don't have to. You have a photo, you have a video. Sometimes it's just easy. It jogs a memory. I'm going to come here. You see what the date is. This is not a family observation, but if it were, family school connection, toggle that over. I'm going to add a note. Bella gave the mic to another child. She said T was sad because he did not have a turn. That's solving social problems. Right from here, here's Bella. So let me close this so that you can see the entire progression. This is Bella. This is 3B. Here are the indicators. I can click this button. It's going to show examples. This is not what the child has to do. It's just an example of what the child, an example of what that would look like. And right from here, I can rate, save and close, and it's up it goes. And then when I go over to view documentation, we'll see that my notes are right here. There it is, right there. So I can toggle over here. This shows me what the documentation is. I can toggle and I can filter over here. If I say action required, it's just going to show me the ones that maybe I need to add a level to, or maybe I need to add a note to, things that I need to work on. Just another way that we have your back so that you don't have to go through and remember these things. They'll be here for you. You'll be able to filter by child, by who wrote the note, by objectives and dimensions. We just have your back when it comes to
and every one of those preliminary levels, just Leslie, as you move on to the next thing, every one of those preliminary levels that you just saw Leslie do, that fuels where children's names fall in that teaching sequence. It's this cycle that's just going to keep refreshing. Oh, right. You were going to show alphabet real quick. Yep, go ahead.
That equals, I'm just going to show this because I like this too. Oh, we did need more than an hour and a half, but this is the alphabet progress summary. So look, here's Bella. I can just click over here and there are the letters, and I can just click away to let me know Bella knows these letters. And guess what? If I click this button, it tells me the date. That might be important to know when she learned these letters. So we have these, we call them on the spot kinds of checklists for things like letters, numbers, shapes, those kinds of things. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Yes. Okay, so that is our assess. I think it's time for me to throw it back to you, Brian, so that you can show the app.
Yeah, do we want to, let's just talk about report for a second. Let's take 5 more minutes to finish here.
Okay.
And then, yes, then we'll pop over. But that's, yeah. So just real quick context for the other pieces. This is the report section. This is not the place you're going to come right out of the gate, but we want you to know it's here. There's a whole suite of reports, some of them really targeted to help support your instruction. But again, we've embedded a lot of that right in the teach area now as we're offering recommendations and connections. But then you'll also find reports that are going to be helpful for family engagement as you give suggested activities and pictures for children's development and learning, as you prepare for IEP meetings and you need to have growth reports. And so over time, there'll be more sessions for you to learn more about these reports, but wanted you to give guidance where that is. Then on the family tab, I think Leslie, high level, we won't dig in because again, there'll be more content here, but just, this family area is where you're going to come to invite families so that they can benefit from things like getting the playlist to get the customized content. Oh, so-and-so wrote their S forward for the first time. That's really exciting. And we want to send that home to Samuel's family, an activity where they can see that in action. So whether it's whole class or individualized, one of your first steps that you'll be coached through is getting families invited there. But we know that that's not really till the back to school time. So then the last piece we wanted to highlight was in the develop area, which is where you're going to go to start taking advantage of all the professional development resources that we have. So within Quorum, which you'll get to first in the develop, that's where all that online coursework is going to be. So if we go even just to the teaching strategy solutions is probably a great place to start. You know that you're preschool, pre-K. Here's all of the online courses. Like I said, some short hour, some long, all the way up to 10 hours, where you can dig into deeper understanding of a lot of the things Leslie and I talked about today. But then also within this catalog, outside of the teaching strategies solutions bucket, then again, that opens up to things related to all different kinds of topics in early childhood. And then the last component is to show the hub. So you can get to the hub 2 ways. There's a shortcut here within Quorum. You can see down there on the right, the hub, or it's also one of those tiles up at the top. And that was that digital professional learning community we talked about. So if we can hop into there for a second, Leslie, I just want to show people into the hub. I want to show people how to register for TAP, the Teacher Acceleration Program. So when you come to the hub, the first place you're going to want to go is to professional development and then join the New York City Teacher Acceleration Program. So this is 8 weeks of dedicated, curated content to have a little bit of a coach to come together with your cohort who's going to walk you through some of those key elements that Leslie outlined in the Getting Started checklist. As you think about welcoming children into the program, as you think about your physical environment, as you think about making every day meaningful through the leveraging these daily resources. So we're encouraging you, New York City leadership is encouraging you to get in here and get started so that you can, jump into a cohort and start building off of the information we shared today, but also know you can come back to this. I love that New York City is introducing all of this here well before next fall. So you've got, we know our teacher brains never turn off in the summer. You'll have time to process and think and be planning and set up for success instead of dropping everything the week before school starts. But we also know there's going to be a lag before you're in there and actually implementing. So know that you can come back and retake this coursework at back to school time if that's helpful. Okay, Leslie, anything else in the platform we wanted to show? Those were the big wins, but you can see across that top, when we talked about that ecosystem graphic at the very beginning, it's those tabs across the top that Leslie mentioned. This is where you're going to go for curriculum and your content in those first two. Then you're going to get to assessment in the middle, but oh, wait, you also saw assessment and curriculum. That's intentional. And then in the develop area, that rich professional development, reporting and family, it's all here connected for you. All right, so Leslie, if you stop sharing, I'll go back to sharing. So here's where we were going to open up the Q&A. So we'll welcome folks to put some questions and answers in there that Leslie and I can help answer. But while folks are doing that, we also want to give you a sneak peek video, I guess, of the new teacher app that is actually out there now, folks are using, but we're kind of launching in a larger way on Apple iOS and Android devices here in the next week or so. I just wanted to end here to give you a view of what this all looks like. Leslie just walked you through kind of the web-based platform, but how we're also bringing all this in the palm of your hand in an app too, to be able to do a lot of those elements. Most importantly, gathering that documentation that Leslie talked about for your portfolios, as well as that strong family connection. So I'm going to play a quick video for you here. I just realized I didn't hit share with sound, so give me one more second. And then we'll jump into some questions.
As a teacher, I can capture observations by either quickly accessing the camera to take high-res photos and videos or capture audio, or I can access my camera roll to use photos and videos I've taken outside the app or upload other files from my mobile device. The documentation process works just like what I'm used to in Gold, so it's easy to use the observations I've captured to create documentation, save it for later, and send it to Gold when I'm ready or when I'm back online. Because my photos, audio files, and videos will be saved in the app, I can use them for more than just documentation. I can share them with families too. For the first time, as a Creative Curriculum Cloud or Gold customer, I have access to family messaging through a mobile app, not just the web. I can send messages and announcements, send attachments, and view any messages I've sent in the past, whether sent on the web or the app. I'll also receive clear notifications when I have new messages from families, a much requested feature by teachers. If I'm out or worried about my response time, I can set up an auto response letting families know that urgent messages should be sent to the main office. I can also easily create documentation using the attachments or notes that I receive from families through my in-app messages. Finally, to make the most of every transition time, I can quickly access and favorite Mighty Minutes to use instantly in the moment. Or I can search the full catalog of 600 Mighty Minutes in English or Spanish by objective, dimension, or age group. If there's a song, I can play the instrumental audio file to make transitions more fun and engaging for my class.
All right, so that's a brief overview of what's coming with the new teacher app. But again, oh gosh, what did I do? Hopefully you can see how, again, that's an ecosystem in action, right? We've got family communication, curriculum components of Mighty Minute, quick way to gather your documentation and have it waiting for you when you go to do your planning that Leslie walked us through. This is our promise to you, is that we are every day focused on thinking about how do we continue to connect all these pieces together. I know that we'll answer some questions here, but I know there's also a feedback survey that'll be sent to, continue to hear share your questions, but also personally want to extend an invitation to all 5,000 of you. We want to hear from you as you start using this, right? You heard Leslie, myself, even Tim on this video, highly requested feature because of what we heard from the field. We are hard at work to keep making these solutions stronger. So please let us know where you're feeling really successful and where you wish if you had a magic wand, you could make something even better, show up for you in a more powerful way. There's a whole team of us here hungry to get that information from you. And there's even some places in the hub where you can put recommendations, and we read every single one of them every day and use that to further drive how we can make sure that these solutions and this ecosystem keeps working for you. All right. So in full transparency, we know we're not going to be able to answer everyone's questions because there's just so many folks on, but we'll skim through. I'll invite Leslie and Caitlin to pop in and specifically call out ones if needed, but I'll ping through as well. But then we'll keep all these questions and we'll make sure that we're putting the answers to these questions in our, additional follow-ups.
And while you guys are kind of scrolling through and looking for some questions to answer, just kind of wanted to let you guys know we appreciate your patience for any of your colleagues who may not have been able to log into the live meeting. It is live streaming on YouTube. I know many of you are worried about attendance and proof of that. We are actually going to track registration data instead of attendance data. So don't worry, if you registered for this webinar, we have that data saved. If you need that, we have it. So don't worry about that. And all right, I'll pass it back over to you guys. If you see any questions, you can answer.
Yeah, so the hub, I saw a couple folks asking and they were saying we went through that too fast, so I'm sorry. But up at the very top, when you log into My Teaching Strategies for the first time, there's all those tiles up at the top. The hub is the last one on the right with little speech bubbles. And I would absolutely say that's the first place to go because there's lots of folks there ready and hungry to help you with your questions. So absolutely hop over there. There was a question about the study topics. And the ages of children. So in your pre-K3, pre-K4, you guys will be using the guided edition study topics. I'm looking for confirmation. Yeah. So we design studies to work for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds because what gets individualized for a 3-year-old versus 4-year-old gets more into that individualized instruction. So that's where the teaching sequence really comes into play of what is a typically developing 3-year-old need on the green color band versus 4-year-old. But as Leslie and I mentioned, that also, we could have 3-year-olds whose skills are at the blue color band, and we could have 4-year-olds whose skills are at the green color band. So that's why we like to serve it all up to teachers with those embedded suggestions based on real data around what children's skills are. Leslie, feel free to jump into as you're skimming questions. At this time, all of our robust translations for child and family solutions are just in Spanish. It's something that we look to continue to build. There are some questions around other translations. So in some of our family content, we're making some progress of being able to at minimum offer some subtitles and other translations for things. But at this point, the comprehensive translation is just into Spanish. But great to hear feedback on what languages folks are looking for next.
I just saw someone ask about TAP cohorts if you haven't received your login yet. So please don't worry, there will be more TAP cohorts starting throughout the rest of June, throughout the summer, even into September. So whenever you do get your login, there will be a TAP cohort that you will be able to join. So no worries there.
Great.
There was also a question about, can we share school information on the TS app for families, like when school is closed or special days? So isn't there an announcement feature, Brienne, where you can, where you can send an information, a message out like that to all of your families?
Yeah, so we pre-curate the content that is related to the study topic specifically, again, editable, but we want to set you up to have a place to get started there. But then you can send individual notes to just one family. You can send announcements that goes to all of the families. So we wanted to give you some content, but more importantly, give you the platform and the interaction to have that direct access. Someone here, we'll just kind of be all over the place, but Leslie, while I answer this one, you skim to the next one here, because there's a lot of really
Okay.
great questions here.
Yes.
About how often are teachers entering this data and assessment information? Our goal as we think about true formative assessment is that this starts to become part of your daily practice. And I know if you haven't been doing that before, that can sound really overwhelming. But what I want to tell you is you're already doing this if you're a good teacher. If you're a good teacher, you're already showing up and observing children every day. That's what we do. That's why we're in this profession, is because we're wanting to individually understand what each child knows and can do so we can build off of that. What we're trying to do here is get all that out of just in your head and have a place for you to systematically capture some of that information so that tools can start to work harder for you. So what we'll do through intentional teaching experiences every day, there's going to be at least one of them suggested. Even if you just start there, that's one piece of observation that you're collecting every day. If you do that small group activity, used what Leslie shared, where children's names are auto-populated on the sequence. If you take the few minutes during your planning period or even in the moment, if you're on your iPad, that you can toggle to that assess and quickly capture what you learn from children, that's going to create a piece of documentation and data. 2 other quick suggestions I'll share. You'll hear more about this in the gold session, but if it feels overwhelming to think about where to start, I'll offer 2 ideas. One is to just think about 5 children a day. So if I've got 20 some children that I'm supporting today on Monday, I'm going to pick 5 and I'm going to put them on a Post-it. I'm going to have a little Post-it note with those 5 children's names today. I'm going to put it somewhere I'm going to see it. Of course, I'm still paying attention to all children all day, but those 5 children I'm paying a little extra attention to. I'm seeking them out at choice time. I'm sitting with them at snack. I'm, playing with them a little bit more if I'm the educator that's out there on the playground. I'm having a little bit of a more focused view, and I just write down at the end of the day. Some of the teachers I coach, I say, set a timer for 7 minutes and then just capture everything for those 5 children that's fresh in my mind from today before I wrap up. And then tomorrow, 5 more children, the next day, 5 more children. So over the course of the week, each child has gotten a little bit extra of my mind share and focus as we move through the day. The second strategy is you could start with objectives and just pick 5 objectives today. I'm going to look for manages feelings, follows limits and expectations, balancing, and emergent writing. And then I'm going to look through morning transition, choice time, small group, and think about what's all the evidence that I could capture for those. So try not to think about it of all children, all objectives every day. That does feel really crazy. Think about the tools we have to set up and then come up with your system or your plan of what makes that feel digestible.
We call that system of success, and it looks different for every teacher. And I will tell you that once you get to know the tool and once you get to know those 38 objectives of development and learning, you'll be surprised on how quickly you'll just see them. You'll walk into a room and the child will be just in their regular routine, and you will see, oh, listen to that language, or look what he's doing. And it will become part of what we do as teachers. There was a question. Okay, go ahead, Jane.
I'll go and then I'll pop to you, Leslie. A few different questions about TAP. So yes, every teacher should have access to TAP. So again, if you're having trouble getting in, it could be because your login hasn't been set up yet. So email that NYC Success email that we've got here. But then there were also questions of, will it be reoffered in September? So we keep these on ongoing rotation of cohorts. So if you want to get in there now, that is strongly encouraged, just to hear some of the big picture ideas around folks start thinking about implementing, but you can absolutely come back in September and retake it again if that's going to have you feel the most supported. Go ahead, Leslie.
There was a question, is there an order to the studies? So they want to know, do we take the studies in a particular order? We highly recommend building the community the first 6 weeks to be first. I cannot say that enough. We highly recommend that. We do now have a suggested order, but it does not have to be that way. And I'm not sure how New York is going to do that, Brian, if you know, if they're going to.
Yeah, so New
Okay.
York is encouraging to follow the guidance that we suggest, which is absolutely, as Leslie mentioned, starting with first 6 weeks and then BALS guided. In particular, the BALS teaching guide, we layered in additional coaching and support, knowing for many people it might be the first study that they're doing. So those blue call-out boxes that Leslie talked about, that's a little coach on your shoulder. There's a whole bunch extra of that in the BALS teaching guide. And then there's a cadence that actually you won't see it if you log in today, but if you log in a little later this summer, as you go to start adding teaching guides, you'll actually see that proposed list pop up for you. Again, flexibility for you to plan and, think about what's best for the children in your class, but there's a certain sense of community building in New York City. And as we think about our supports, for folks to follow that recommended guidance, so that we can best set everyone up for success. But as Leslie mentioned, of course, over time, thinking about that flexibility. Is there okay, we answered that question. Username, it's a lot around username and password, so we'll be busy helping make sure folks get that. Lots around logins. A lot around the study order, so we just answered that. So absolutely, we're aligned to New York State standards. I should have talked about that at the beginning, but we wouldn't be here if we weren't. So that's usually the first part of a process, and any kind of large adoption like that is our educational leaders sitting with your state's education leaders and going through an alignment resource. So we're actually aligned to all 50 state standards and Head Start early learning frameworks. It's interesting, we talk often about our objectives for development and learning, or our ODL. You'll hear us as we become friends. That's not the secret sauce, and it shouldn't be, right? It's research-based. There's a criterion reference report behind all of those objectives. They look very, very similar. If anything, they're just more consolidated to feel more accessible and digestible on an ongoing formative assessment way. But then I think what the rocket science comes in is those progressions of development. So how do we take these state standards and put them in actionable steps and milestones along a progression? So there was a question here around the timing of TAP. That's something we'd love to continue to hear feedback on. So we partnered with New York City leadership on what was our first pass at the best times to offer that. But share your feedback if there's things as we continue to move back to school that we need to reevaluate. We are so committed to showing up for you when and where you need us. So if we're not doing it, please let us know, and we will figure out a way.
I just saw a question about staying on this Zoom link for the next webinar. Each webinar has their own individual Zoom link. You had to register for them individually. So you'll need to exit this Zoom and enter the next Zoom based on the links you received. If you don't have those links, you can head to the Padlet, or you can head to the NYC support page. I'll put both of those links in the chat for you if you didn't register for them and you need to.
Great. One kind of final-ish thought I'll say, but Leslie can see if there's one other question. I want to reiterate that we showed a lot to you here in 90 minutes, right? That was kind of the promise at the beginning, is we were going to look at the whole ecosystem, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to dig in. But what I want to make sure that Leslie and I made clear enough here, because it is a unique part of who Teaching Strategies is this is a place to start. So in particular, we think about the curriculum and the instructional materials. We are not here to script everything you say. We are not here to tell you exactly what you're doing at this moment. That's very much the opposite. The fidelity of our tool, to use it as we intended, is for you to make this your own. So if you are a teacher who has felt very confident creating your own curriculum solutions and navigating some of that, we know that you're experienced teachers. We know that you bring a great amount of experience and passion related to this, and you know the children you serve better than anyone else. But with what the creative curriculum does is set, like I joked earlier, like it gives you your Sunday night back. It gives a place to start from, but that's why we've prioritized, in a way, honestly, I haven't seen any other digital solutions offer this ability that you editing this content, that's just part of the foundation of our tool. The ability that you can delete resources and add in new ones. You can build out your own custom library. We didn't have a time to share that, but you'll see that in future sessions. You can build out a whole custom library of these experiences you know are meaningful and resonate with the children and families in your classroom. But there is also this beauty of having that then live within a system where it's prioritized, but also sits within a system where you can share information more easily and make sure that we're getting those individualized components in. So I hope no matter where you are along your teaching experience, you see how from that very first year teacher, we're here to set you up for success and make sure that we've got your back and all those big major times of day are planned for you. But if you're a really experienced teacher, I hope you see this as a platform and a way to maybe take some of that planning stress off of you, some of that cognitive dissonance, and get to a spot where you can spend more time doing what you love, of actually being present with children and thinking of new and innovative ways to make this content sing with each of the children in your classroom. All right. And it's 10 o'clock, so I guess we have to go. But I'll just say, we also have a rich physical children's book collection, which will come in your print solutions. I realized we didn't actually show that, Leslie. We just showed digital. So of course there are children's books. You're going to read physical children's books, 2 of them a day within your classrooms. The digital access is just and then because you'll be able to share some of those home with families, which is our true intent there. Thank you so much, everybody. We look forward to future conversations where we can see your faces and hear your voices. But thank you so much for all you do. And we can't wait to see you soon.
Thanks so much, Brian and Leslie. We really appreciate you guys sharing your expertise with all of us. Hopefully it got some of you guys even more excited to get started. But all of these places are places you can find us if you want to interact with anybody from Teaching Strategies. Any questions you guys have, send them to the nycsuccess@teachingstrategies.com inbox. And we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the future sessions. Thanks, everyone.
And yes, we're aligned to Eckers. We totally know about it. We're most widely used in Head Start. So Eckers is absolutely at the core of every decision we make. So no worries there.